You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Best Comics of the Week show. Of course, I'm here with my man, Gray. Feeling under the weather. Gray is. How you doing, Gray?
I'm good, thanks. I went to a local beer festival last night, Jim, and that's all I'll say about that. So a little bit ropey this morning.
A little bit ropey, you say, and
Yeah.
On a holiday weekend for some. Not everybody celebrates Easter, but if you do, have a nice Easter weekend. My family doesn't really do any sort of holidays, so it's kind of a free day for me. So we're here, and we have our best of the week. I think people are going to be maybe a little surprised. I don't know. I say at the beginning, I'm going to say it again, that we're going to go through books. Me and Gray are going to tell you what our favorite picks of the week are. That doesn't mean that we think everything else stinks. That doesn't mean that we're trying to fight with people, because it would be great to have everybody else join in the comments and let us know what your favorite books of the week are. And as a collective unit, you kind of get suggestions out there. These, to me, are the books that I would actually suggest. Hey, you should get this. You should check it out. I hate the idea of, well, these all sucked here, but this was the best of the set. I don't want to recommend things that I don't think are that good. We had some guy yelling at us last week about this, and I'm kind of leading into the idea that for the first time since we've been doing this, we don't have any DC books this week. We don't have any DC books. We only have one Marvel. So it's actually a pretty big indie deal. But again, if you read a DC book that you think was pretty good, let us know. I haven't read every single DC book. There's like one or two that I haven't read, and maybe those were bangers. I don't know, but you didn't pick any either, right? I mean, me and you both said we're passing on DC this week, and we don't want to get yelled at about it. We still like DC. This week was a little down.
We do. We love DC. And as you've always said, Jim, it's got to be an 8 out of 10 or higher, to make the best of the week. And unfortunately, nothing really hit that from DC this week.
Yeah, for us. I mean, like I said, I try to stress the idea that everybody can join in, and I hope they do. And if you like one of the, maybe you like 10 books from DC or Marvel or whatnot, just let everybody know. Let us know, and we'll check them out, and a lot of other people will as well. But since we're skipping DC, and we actually usually start with that, we'll go to Marvel. And Marvel, it's not a shock, but it is kind of a shock because Gray has jumped on the bandwagon. I'm talking about Ultimate Spider-Man #3, and it's written by Jonathan Hickman with art by Marco Cicchetto. And you have kind of not been reading Ultimate Spider-Man as much, right? And then you ended up jumping on, you liked it.
Yeah, I was reading it, but it didn't really pull me in from the beginning. I thought it was a bit slow, a lot of setup, of course, and, dialogue heavy. But he's turned it around, Jim. Hickman's pulled me in with the really good dialogue, the great character work, and the world building. It's not amazing, but it's a fun Spider-Man book.
Yeah, and it's a weird thing. This week it became a thing that, people were mentioning, hey, listen, we're only 3 issues in.
Yeah.
And, people are losing their minds, and some people are. But the idea of it is a lot of people, when you see videos or people even commenting on mine or your videos, a lot of people are miserable, including me. I mean, there are a lot of bad books. We just skipped DC, right? We ended up not even having a DC book. So when you end up, I hate to get upset at people for actually getting very excited about books, because I'll tell you, some people are saying, oh my God, it's not the best book ever. It's not even the best book coming out right now. And they'll say Transformers or whatever. But a lot of people said Transformers is better. But remember, when Transformers came out, it took 1 or 2 issues and people were saying that was the greatest thing ever.
Exactly.
And I don't get upset about that, because of the idea that it shows other things. On the surface level, it looks like, oh, look at these people. They're losing their minds over this in a couple issues. But in my mind, what it does is show that people are starved for a good book. And a weird thing about this is there's a couple books that we're going to talk about tonight, but things that are usual suspects on our show here are books like a Transformers, or this week a Duke, or this old. It ends up having a story that respects the characters and actually gives the fans what they want, which seems like it's such a crazy idea, right? Hey, I'm going to write a book that fans will like, right? And I don't understand when you look at this book, like when people say, oh my God, I love it. When you, oh, well, why do you love it? And right away it's, well, Mary Jane and Peter together, they have a family. And really, in this issue, you have to love May. She's cute as a button. She's the best character
She's
in
awesome.
my mind. And she's so great. I said in our review that makes me scared they're going to kill her. But that's just me. I get really frightened. But that's what most people say. Oh, my God, Mary Jane and Peter are together. And it's fun to see Peter happy. And he's hanging out with May. They have the family. You got the son. All that. That doesn't seem like it's that hard of a formula. This is what people have been begging for.
No.
And you end up having Nick Lowe and the whole, Spider office. They'll have 80 excuses of why they can't do it. But then you have it here in an Ultimate Universe, which is kind of a shame. It is an alternate thing, but it still just shows you that, Nick Lowe and they're wrong. They are completely wrong. And I think that if anything, and some people say, oh, well, I'm waiting for the other shoe to fall. Jonathan Hickman's going to screw things up. He's going to leave, whatever. First up, let's just have fun as it's going. But maybe this book's legacy will be to finally show Marvel, if they want to make some money, do this in the regular universe. It could happen because of this, and I'm all for that. But the issue itself, it's funny because as I was going in this issue, I actually rated this lower than the first two. And I think it's because it's almost like the wow factor is kind of good. But you're right. The stuff with May is great. And you have a fashion show. You end up having the suit. A lot of people were wondering, even asked me, and I made a joke on a review, the idea of like, are they going off and like knitting up the suit? Like, do they have a thing? I'm like,
yeah,
no,
I was thinking the same thing.
It's the tech. But when you think of it, it is kind of funny. It's like, no, May's like, no, I don't like it. It's too scary. Okay, well, let's go back to sewing machine. But it also leads to what happens in this issue with Green Goblin, but also where people are asking, because they haven't really spelled it out, are the webs organic or are they suit-based? Are they tech-based? I think it's all the tech. The Oscorp start.
Yeah, it's not clear yet, is it? Yeah.
But it seems like that. But the one thing, too, is as you go and you have a little joke because you even have the Ben Reilly outfit on. And May's like, no, how old are you, Dad? That's not cool.
Dad, you're old. What are you doing?
One of the things that people told me about Jonathan Hickman, because I haven't read a ton of Jonathan Hickman, but one of the things, he doesn't have a sense of humor. There's a lot of fun stuff. It's not, you know what I mean?
Jim, I'll tell you what I'm enjoying as well. I'm loving the scenes with Ben Parker and Jonah Jameson. They're just great. They're really funny.
And it's not set up to be a gag. It's just funny. It feels like a natural fun deal. And just as a thing with May, where people are wanting to have the family and just having Peter and May hanging, and you end up seeing even at the beginning, when, they're kind of talking about stuff, and obviously they got the secret about Spider-Man, and Mary Jane and Richard come in and like, oh, what are you guys up to? And they're like, nothing, we're not doing anything. And it feels like a really cool father-daughter. And then even the idea, and I said, when I talked to some other people, I love the way that Hickman gets it, where, and I have 5 kids, God bless me. You end up where some kids go to my wife and some were with me. And that's kind of how it is. It looks like you have Richard hanging out with Mary Jane and May hangs out with Peter. And it's cool. And some people were saying, oh, I was afraid that May would be this, know-it-all kind of pain. That seems like that might be Richard's deal. Like, he seems to be the one who's like...
He's a bit too cool for school, isn't he, Jim? Yeah.
But it's kind of a cool little play there. And I do hope that we see more Mary Jane and Richard, too, maybe hanging out together or whatnot. But as this is, I just think May is great. But you're right, when you end up getting J. Jonah and Uncle Ben, that's really good. I mean, they're talking... I don't know what they're thinking getting that huge space. That had to have been crazy amount of money where it is.
I know, right?
But they're going for it. And it even was at the very beginning. I think it was the first issue when Peter seemed depressed, where he ended up saying, you old guys, you're just going for it. You're like throwing caution to the wind, and they still keep doing it. It's kind of fun because they get this, they don't have employees. They don't have a name. They don't have anything. They're just going for it. But they are hoping that Peter can give them a little like inside scoops and stuff that, what are they talking about at the Bugle? And the big thing is the Green Goblin, which then leads to the extended fight we get. And we do get this Bullseye. And Bullseye in this, he actually even says, like, you get some of that world building of hey, I'm not really working for small fry Fisk. You may think Wilson Fisk, Kingpin is like the big deal, but there are people above him. We kind of know that, but you kind of get that too. But you do get a team up with this Goblin and Peter Spider-Man. And without either or, it looks like Bullseye might have been able to take care of him. But I guess I should say that we're going to talk spoilers here. It is at the end of the deal in the deal. But the big thing in this is that who is the Goblin? Did you know? Because it was spoiled like weeks ago.
I didn't know.
I didn't see it. So I'm there and I'm even talking in the review like, yeah, well, I'm this and that. People are like, what are you, a dummy? It got spoiled like a month ago. I actually avoided the spoilers, but spoiler here, it is Harry. And again, that kind of makes you kind of, it's cool. You start wondering things. And he's not a villain. He's actually a good guy. So that's a cool thing. But it all is. And I saw Yule today, Yule from when he's on the Aficionados, and he was talking while that show was going on that he doesn't like the Ultimate Spider-Man because it's a glorified what if, he said, but it kind of is. I mean, it's a what if Peter
What's wrong with
wasn't
that?
Spider-Man. And I like that play of, what would happen if Peter wasn't Spider-Man, and all these things happen. And if you aren't aware, they had spoilers coming up. That next issue, I believe it is when Gwen Stacy shows up and she seems to be with Harry. So there's some cool things.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's some cool stuff. And the idea of if Peter wasn't Spider-Man, yeah, Gwen lives. I mean, that's just how it would be. And I like that sort of play. But at the end, you even have the idea that Harry's able to kind of dissipate Peter's, Spider-Man costume because it is that same tech. So that's kind of cool. And they seem to they're going to go out for drinks. So that's a crazy deal. But the art's great, right? And I had fun.
Gorgeous.
I had fun with it. It's May for me, though. Like the idea of Harry and Peter, like people are like, oh my God, and Bullseye. I'm like, no. I want to go back when May was talking. They were doing the fashion show. But I do think a lot of people should jump on.
That scene, Jim, with May on Peter's back, swinging through the city, Spider-Man. I loved it. People were kind of half complaining, saying, oh, that's dangerous. But it's like, come on, they're having fun. That's the most thing that this book is. It's fun.
It is. I was going to say, like, it's not Michael Jackson holding, towel over the deal, I think his name was. But the thing that, like you said, though, it's fun. That's what it is. I know things probably will get dark. I know we're going to have some crazy stuff. But
they look so happy, both of them now. It's
so
great.
Great. And it's just a cool thing. And it's something that you can't get in the regular books. I mean, you have Paul. I mean, that's what you get. You either have this book with May and Peter swinging around, or you go and read Jackpot and Black Cat, and you could see Paul talking to Mary Jane with powers. I mean, really? That's why people are going nuts about this book, because of the alternative is that nonsense. And don't even talk about Zeb Wells, because that's why. But I really do like it. And that's my big recommendation for the week. But we'll continue. We spent so much on that. I told you at the beginning before we recorded that it's going to be so quick because we only have a couple books that we spend all that time.
I thought we were going to make it quick.
It's that good. But we'll go now, because the next one is something, again, I don't think people will be that surprised with a lot of these picks, but Duke number 4, the Energon Universe, the G.I. Joe stuff continues. It's Joshua Williamson writing and Tom Riley on art. I really like the art in this book, and there's always like a scene in it that just like, I'm like, oh, that looks so cool. And in this one, I don't know, there's a couple, but I do like when you have the vehicles, when you have the tank and the carrier and the jet going and everything coming down on, Blood and his guys. Also, this had a couple of moments that I laughed in it, when at the one point when you end up getting Blood's guys and they're like, no amount of money's worth this, and they just scoot.
That was really funny.
It was funny. But the big thing is the Baroness here escaping with Duke. And, I didn't think they were going to be besties for life. She kind of then just kind of leaves them and goes. But I really I like this book. I'm telling you right now that most of the times still, I'm not a huge, longtime G.I. Joe guy. So when you have cliffhangers, I end up like, yeah, okay, I don't know who that is, but it looks
Same
cool.
Here.
You know what I mean? But I still like it. And that's why I know that the book is good. And one of the better books that Joshua Williamson is writing is the idea that I'm just here for the action. I do know, most of the characters that are featured because they're bigger characters, but some I'm still learning of, but I'm actually really liking it. I really like the idea, and having, some new characters that I learn and don't like, as villains, I think is cool when you end up getting Scrap Iron and all. And a lot of people, oh my God, Stalker, Rock and Roll. You have some of the ones I know, but the big play here was Baroness and Duke, and then Duke trying to take it to, Cobra and trying to get them back and whatnot. I liked it. I had a good time. How about you?
Absolutely. I've seen people writing about it, and people are loving this. It's, to me, Jim, it's getting better and better as it goes on, because I enjoyed the first issue, but issue 4, I am totally in. It's all killer, no filler, isn't it? And as you say, the Baroness, how good does she look in this? There's something about her. Of course, she's a sexy character. She's funny. Right. She's she's after her own thing, of course, but I thought she was going to take Duke out at one point. And
I did too.
No,
and she even talks about the idea, that, hey, you have a price on your head, things like that. Yeah. And she's going to do it. And then she kind of ends up where you have the other characters jump in and hey, we're going to take her down. No. It's Stalker comes in. Stalker's going to slice her. And he says, no, she's with me. And that's weird. He's what the hell are you talking about? And of the Baroness I've seen, this actually looks like what I would say Catwoman to look like in her book.
Oh, nice.
I love those goggles and I love the whole thing. And I said, at the end, he is going at Mars and going in the deal. But again, some of these things I have to catch up. I have to end up looking up, but I do really like it. And I think that the way that it's played out, I think Joshua Williamson is doing character work that ends up pretty good. I mean, that's what mainly in a crazy action-packed deal, you're still getting that character work and you want to see Duke and everybody else. But yeah, I think that I was a little upset because Baroness kind of gets out of here. She was my favorite character so far. Since she came in, I was like, oh, she's so great. We have some other books coming up, a Scarlet book, and we have a Destro book. I kind of want a Baroness book right now. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, even at the one point, looks like Duke gets shot down, and that's where Scrap Iron goes. And it was a pretty cool moment. He's like, nobody can survive that. And then when he sees the helmet just laying there, he's like, what does it take to stop this guy? And it's it feels like a cartoon. It feels
a bit cliche, but why not? It's awesome. It's,
And that's where we were talking about the Ultimate Spider-Man. I want these moments like this. I want to have the bad guy okay, I got him. And he's like, I can't, oh man, what does it take? And I thought that was really, really cool and really good and goes well with the other. Still my second favorite of the Energon Universe stuff, after Transformers. That's the big one.
Yeah.
And then, we talked about it, Void Rivals and Cobra Commander, and they kind of go back and forth with it. But these are the big two to me are this and Transformers. We'll see what Transformers with the new art and things going on. But I did like this, but we're going to go to a book that your big picks. What is your first one now?
Okay, my pick of the week is my best of the week. It's Conan the Barbarian, issue 9, written by Jim Zub. We've got Roberto de la Torre coming back on art here, Jim. He did the first story arc, and it was absolutely fantastic. People singing his praises, and rightly so. And colours by Dean White. I've got to shout out Dean White because I don't often talk about colorists, but the colours in this book,
so good.
I think they're really good. Yeah. What did you think about the art?
I loved it. I mean, how much I like this. I actually sent, and I believe it was just the big page with King Kull. I sent that page to Eric, who I do the DC stuff with, because we were just talking. We got done doing our DC Comics podcast, and afterwards we kind of chat a little. And I mentioned that, hey, me and Gray are going to be doing this. He called you Gray Eye. So we end up where we're going to do this. And I said, we both like the Conan book. Because he for whatever reason, he never asked. But he's like, oh, what did you guys like? And I'm like, oh, well, we both like Conan. He's like, oh, Conan, is it good? And I said, yeah, it's pretty good. And he's like, yeah. When I didn't know he used to collect Conan comics at one point, he said, as a kid. So I'm like, oh, man. And I said, here, check this out. And I sent him that page. I sent a thing of that page. And he's like, holy crap, that looks like exact for when he was collecting.
Oh, it looks awesome.
That looks so good. And I said, that's it. There are some other pages that you could even say are better. I mean, it's so good. And the coloring, like you said, it's that weird play. The things do pop, but they pop in a way it actually still feels almost like an older comic, almost like
exactly.
At points it's a little faded, a little, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not, it doesn't feel like it's that really okay, here we did it digitally and we ended up, it really feels like you grabbed an older comic.
I'd love to see a physical copy, Jim, because, like me, I think you're reading digital, aren't you? And it looks awesome, but I want to see what it's like, if it has that kind of faded effect to it or not.
It has to, because it looks so good.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, too, because I ended up, me and Jim Sub, we have that long-running feud that he didn't know about.
You feuding?
He does send me the review copies, and I don't like to read the review copies because Titan ends up putting a huge watermark.
Yeah, it is annoying, unfortunately.
It's annoying, and it also is like, this book looks so good that you don't want to ruin it for yourself.
No, you feel like you're spoiling it.
Yeah, I don't. It really throws me off, and it's a shame. I guess they have to do that, but it's a real shame because once you get the actual copy, it looks so good. It looks so good, and it is like that going back in time deal to the beginning of the Robert E. Howard stuff when you go to Volusia and you have the King Cole stuff, and it's good. It's action packed. Here's the thing with Conan. What you need for Conan, you need to have an action pack. You need to have some blood. It's great to have like a mountain lion and have some sexy ladies that he tries to pet down. This issue has all of that. I mean, it has all of that I just mentioned. I'm like, holy crap, like this is really good. Again, when I said earlier, it's not that crazy a formula to give people what they like, what they want from a book, and actually respect the characters while telling a new story. That seems to be so easy. These are the books that most people are going to right now, are books that follow that formula. And it's just, why don't the big two especially like really realize that and buckle down and tell these writers, this is what we need to do? Because, you would hope that DC and Marvel are paying attention to the Energon stuff because it's so big, but I hope they're paying attention to things like this as well, that they might not have realized, like Marvel losing the license, and then you have this, right? And people are going nuts for it.
They must be paying attention, Jim. I'm sure they're really aware how well it's doing as well.
Like we say, a lot of people are like, oh man, I wish they'd learned from manga. And you wonder, do they? Are they paying attention to any of this stuff? Or are they in their little, cubes where they can't even, stand to look out? I don't know. I just, because it really is an easy formula. It looks really, really cool. And yeah, and in it starts a new arc. I think you could jump in on this, even if you weren't reading before. But I would suggest that you read from the beginning, right?
Yeah, same here. I don't know the characters in this because, as you say, there's a big time jump. It goes back in time, and we're talking about some really original Robert E. Howard characters. But even from that point of view, like, I really enjoyed this opening issue. So if I can get into it, I'm sure you can too.
Yeah, and in the deal, it's funny because I think I had a couple things with like an omnibus, and not even a comic, but a thing that I had back when I was a kid, like this illustrated thing in a history of Robert E. Howard, and that King Kull is like kind of the precursor deal. They're in the same, deal. It's just before the Hyborian age, so you end up having that. But it's cool, and it works out, and it actually plays out pretty neat the way that they do it. And so I actually was surprised that he was doing this. But then once I read it, I was like, yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Now, all we keep saying, though, when we read that Savage sort of code, I want more of Solomon Kane is what I really want. And hopefully we'll get it in that. But this is cool going back in the deal. So, yeah, I'm with you with this pick. The next book, though, I am not I'm not reading. And but a lot of people like this and the kind of sister or brother book of it as well, right?
Yeah, it's the companion book to Ram V's The One Hand. This is the Six Fingers, issue 2, written by Dan Wadders. It's got art by Sumit Kumar. I think that's how you pronounce it. He's as far as I know, he's an Indian artist who's done some great work. I've seen his work on These Savage Shores. Jim, I've talked about it before. It's a vampire story that Ram V did. It's gorgeous. Worth picking up.
Yeah, he does a lot of stuff with Ram V, I believe. But yeah, this is Dan
Wadders. So, yeah, they've done quite a few things together, haven't they? And what was interesting is he's not on Ram V's book. He's on the Dan Wadders book.
That's what's kind of cool, yeah.
So, yeah, if you haven't read this yet, I kind of not convince you to give this a try because I don't even know how to summarize it. It's basically it's seen from the killer's perspective as far as we know, but it's playing with reality. So you're not quite sure, is this real? Is he dreaming this? Is it in his head? So messing about with that. It's a little bit Matrix-esque in that respect. But as I say, the art, it's worth buying just for the art, Jim. It's really cool.
I'm looking at it now. It does look cool. Now, I have a question for you for the thing.
Okay.
When you have, and it is the one hand, right? Is that what it's
Yes.
called, the Rembi? So if you weren't reading that, could you still read this without
Yes.
that? Yeah, you could.
I think you could. Yeah.
Because I know that some people are saying it was a weird play because if you were reading Ram V's one hand, this kind of spoils some things. So, that,
Yeah.
but I didn't know if you could actually just read this. Like, I don't know why, but if you just were, hey, I like Dan Waters, I want to read just this. So it would work out that way as well. So that's cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I didn't really enjoy the first one, issue one. I was like, oh, this feels very unnecessary. But, to be fair, Dan Waters, he's written a really good issue two. He's pulled me in. So, yeah, I think I actually enjoyed this more than the one hand issue two. So there we go.
I ended up, because I like Dawn Runner and Ram V. And I actually thought that, like, oh my God, like people would be so happy that I'm giving a Ram V book a chance. And I like that. I got some crap for it. Like, oh man, it's so generic and all
What
that.
dimension are we in? What's going on here?
God, I'm like, you got to give me something here. I actually liked it. And maybe it was because it was so generic because it goes so wacky at points. But we end up with that. We have one last book. And this was a book that it actually shocked me, not the book itself, but when I do my most anticipated comics, I was looking through some things and I see, oh man, this looks pretty cool. What's this? Feral number one. So I ended up mentioning it. I said, hey, I want to see what this is like. It looks really cute, but in a also horror kind of way. I'd like to solicit. I was shocked at how many people were like, oh my God, I can't wait for this. This is going to be great. This is the book that I'm most looking forward to. I had no idea that people were really down with it. I didn't read Stray Dogs.
Oh, did you not read Stray Dogs?
No,
Yeah.
I didn't read that. Never even really heard anything of it.
That's a crazy cool book.
When I think I heard Stray Dogs, I didn't see a cover. I don't know why, but I thought it was like some like, oh, that's probably like some 1990s like British like mob type thing. I don't know why. It was weird.
Having to go with the British again, Jim.
Yeah, like what? So when I said I'm going to read Stray Dogs now because I did like this. I liked it. Tony Fleece, I hear, is how you pronounce it. I found that out today, maybe. And writing it. And Trish Forstner and Tony Rodriguez on art. And it looks like it looks like you have Disney animated cells is what the art looks like. It looks like a classic Disney movie, but playing in a darker story. I liked it. And I didn't know what to expect. At first, I'm going through, and I actually read it twice. And the second time, I don't know why, but I really liked it a lot more. But I definitely, it's one of our picks here. And you end up having these three cats. And I do like cats. At one point, I was more of a dog guy. I think at my old age, I'm now a cat guy.
Okay.
Yeah, the idea and what I do like about it is you have this overall story that almost feels like if you had the elevator pitch, it would be like Homeward Bound meets Walking Dead is what it seems like. These cats are trying to figure out what's going on, and there's animals are rabid. But even when you get that poor guy who was riding in that truck that ended up in the tree was just horrific how he ended up. But you even hear that there's some outbreak and things like that going on. But what I did like about it is the idea, and I'm expecting it to be even more, but the cats actually have their own personalities. Like you're setting it up and you have a couple cats here. And why are we getting more character work out of these cats than I've had for a lot of the big two books in the past, months and months? And I thought that was a pretty cool play and trying to figure out what it is. And also you're going to root for these cats. They're cute as anything. And so I really did like it. Did you like it?
I did. I really enjoyed it. As I say, it's so deceptive when you see the art and then you actually get the story. I love that, the way he's messed around with with your expectations there. It's not Disney cute, although it looks like it is, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I like that. And again, there's that trope to deal with that, but I think this plays out well. And in the beginning, where we're just introduced, you have Patch, Elsie, and of course Lord Fluffy Britches, which I don't know if you know that was my DJ name in Cleveland back in the 80s.
No way.
So you end up where I know the cats, I know the characters, and you're already like, you don't want them to get hurt. But again, I really thought that it was the play, and even having it where, they're in a truck. You don't know exactly it's animal control. You expect that they got grabbed, but they don't know. These cats, you play it out in the way that it's natural. It's funny to say it's natural for what they would know. Like, they're not all knowing. Like, oh, those humans came and grabbed us from this and we were going here, whatever. They have no idea. The only thing that they know is up to this point, you have to trust humans because that's who takes care of you. So they even have this debate at the beginning of, we got to wait here for the humans to come and get us because they'll certainly come here and they'll take, and you have that fight about, how, and reading it, you realize you're like, oh, I think they were nabbed and they're going to do experiment. You don't know, but it's a cool way to play it. And then they're looking for, as I said, Lord Fluffy Britches, and then find him, and then you get that setup, DJ. And then you go. Yeah, so I actually think that it's a pretty cool setup, and I'm expecting it to be even better as it goes on, and looking forward to it. It was one of those surprises. I was first surprised that a lot of people were into it, and then I was surprised how much I liked it in a way where, I'll tell you, there's times, because I do a lot of manga reviews and do our manga things, there are books where I it's hard to explain of, you kind of know that you like it and it has it, but you can't really tell why. Like, why is this one the one that I'm really liking with these cats? It's kind of go, but it has that feel to me. It has the feel where, yeah, I think I like this. I think I'm going to keep reading it. I think that I'll be into it. So I do want to read Stray Dogs. There are a couple other books. The Goon one-shot I was going to read, but I've never read any Goon, and I got some suggestions of what to read. And I'm going to eventually read that one shot, but after I read a little bit else. It looked great. It looked fantastic. I ended up paging through it, and it's black and white, and it looks really, really good. But I want to kind of hold off on that until I read a little bit of The Goon. And then there was some other stuff that obviously I couldn't get to, and you didn't get to as well, right? But those are pretty good.
We also had, what was it, Jim? We had King Spawn 32, which is pretty good. It's decent. To say it wasn't 8 out of 10, so it didn't make my list. And Sam and Twitch, issue 1, I think it's a mini-series, The Case Files. That was good too, but there was something about it, I don't know. It's if you read it, you'll see the way they've done the dialogue. They're not using word balloons. It's a bit strange, and it's quite dark. It's quite shocking.
I'll ask you now, could I read Sam and Twitch without knowing a lot about Spawn and Sam and Twitch, or is it?
Yeah, it's just like a kind of hard-boiled, pulpy, noir detective story.
That's the other thing is I forgot to ask you this week. I had even talked to some people and said I'm going to ask you about that, and then maybe check it out. But I still, we still have the weekend to check things out before we start a new week of comics. But yeah, so if you like any other, or if you like some of the ones we did or didn't like them, whatever, just let us know, and we'll talk. And if people end up going, I have a link to Gray's channel, the Wakasashi's Tea House. You can go there. But when somebody comments, and if they have a comment for Gray, I always tell him, and he comes over and yells at them. I say, go get him, Gray. Usually that's the thing. Everybody says about you, it's like, Gray's the smartest guy ever. And Gray had, oh man, Gray's the best. And then they start attacking me. I'm like, I'm like, how many burner accounts does Gray have? That's what I say. As I'm
25.
Shaking my yes, and I have 26, so I'll go ahead. But yeah, so thanks, everybody. Make sure you check the show notes. Go to Gray's channel, all of that. But thanks for joining me as well, Gray. And we will
Jim.
Get things going. And next week, we have a whole mess of comics. And if you want to, I'll be putting up my most anticipated comics for next week. That goes up on Sundays. So we will all talk to you then. See ya.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.